if you have a really busy practice and you're on the road driving around, you don't want to get home and do cytologies for an hour or two. You could just drop it in a mailbox after you've even visited the patient. And yeah, we have some doctors that are like busy mobile vets or they're stuck in traffic in an urban area. So they'll collect the swabs themselves and just drop it in the mail. And with your kit, we'll actually give you the cytology results and images of the microscopy, just like you'd be doing yourself to have with your results. So it's really a time saver for busy mobile vet practice.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison. I'm a full-time integrative concierge house call veterinarian in Los Angeles, and I help other vets to build their unique mobile practices on their terms. This podcast is for and by house call and mobile veterinarians, so it is meant to give our community a platform to connect, to share our stories, to lift each other up, and to support each other. Most of us work solo as lone wolves, right? So for me, it's been really powerful to be able to physically hear the voices of my colleagues from all over the world and to get a chance to feel that we truly are part of a community of very real other human beings who get it. While you may be alone in that little bubble of your own vehicle when you're on the road seeing patients, I welcome you to join our community by tuning into our own podcast when you're on your way to your next house call. Whether you're a super experienced house call vet with 30 years of experience, you're a brand new prospective house call vet just looking to get started, or you're house call curious, there will be something for you in this podcast. Each episode, you will hear interviews from other mobile veterinarians just like yourself who are doing unique and innovative things, vets who are sharing their stories, their struggles and challenges, and you can also look forward to hearing valuable information and perspectives from specialists and experts outside of our micro niche. And finally, if becoming a house call veterinarian is something that you've been thinking about exploring, or you're looking for some extra support getting your own mobile practice to feel more profitable and sustainable for you, check out the information in the show notes about my course and our above and beyond supportive private community for members only, plus our monthly group coaching sessions within the House Call Vet Academy. You can also check out my free public Facebook group, which is also called the House Call Vet Cafe, the same name as this podcast, and which is a warm and cozy community for mobile vets to support each other in professional and personal development, in creative entrepreneurship, and in friendship. So thank you guys for spending time with me today. Let's dive into the episode.
Okay, hey everyone. We have an awesome guest with us today for our episode. We have one of the amazing sponsors from the House Call and Mobile Vet Virtual Conference 2025 that we were honored to be able to collaborate with. So today we have Ed Goluch with us, who is the founder and CEO of QSM Diagnostics, makers of the Otter EQ laboratory instrument platform and FetchDx mail-in testing kits. Prior to QSM, Ed was a tenured professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering of Northeastern University. Ed earned his PhD in bioengineering from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and he has over 60 publications and several patents in the area of sensors, microfluidics, and biophysics. His interdisciplinary background in chemical, mechanical, and biological engineering allows him to connect concepts from various disciplines to provide unique solutions to complex problems. And I think that is why he's here with us in the veterinary space, solving some of our complex problems. So QSM has some amazing stuff. The mail-in testing kits, we're going to hear all about it and how it's super relevant for us house call vets. And so I wanted to start out the episode just by asking you what I ask all of my house call vets who are on the show. What do you like to eat in the car when you're on the way to the lab or wherever it is you work?
In the morning, because I'm in Boston these days, it's usually a nice coffee dunk. And I think it's pretzels generally. Pretzels are my go-to thing. I'm more of a salty snack guy.
Okay. All right. Love it. So yeah, you're like the salty, savory side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever said pretzels before on the show. That's interesting. Everyone says like nuts or chocolate. I mean, they're all excellent treats, but pretzels, that's a good one. Do you like the sourdough twisted sticks? Or are you more like the like curly kind that like wrap around themselves?
For the car, I like the curly ones, like the mini ones, because they're poppable. But definitely, like the sticks are fun if I'm like sitting around at home.
Okay, that's fair. Totally. Love it. So you're a little bit of a different guest on the show. You're not a veterinarian, but you are very adjacent to what we do and like particularly relevant, not just in the sense of you're offering laboratory options and solutions, but like mail in, which is so relevant to house call and mobile vets. Like we're on the go, mail in everything is very, very helpful for us. But before we get into that, I'm really interested to hear you've had an interesting journey. You mentioned before the call that you have a CV that's 44 pages and like you published like 60 different things or whatever it was. How did you get here? How did you get connected into the veterinary space and working with veterinarians in the laboratory sense?
Yeah. So the veterinary side for me has been probably the last 7 or 8 years, which has been that's quite a while now. But it started out in 2009 is when I first started getting interested in microbiology. So my degree's in bioengineering, and I was making sensors and devices for a lot of different applications when I was doing research. And I was trying to find what I was going to do and propose for research for a faculty position. And that's actually where I came across some really cool microbiology things. And so I read a paper about what are called quorum-sensing molecules, which is how we ended up with QSM Diagnostics. There was a paper from a group in Ireland that had started, for an engineering group that started to measure QSMs. And these are chemicals that are secreted by bacteria and other pathogens during their natural processes so that they can communicate with each other. And I thought it was really fascinating. I'd never heard about them before. And I thought it would be really interesting to start measuring that. Microbiologists have actually known about QSMs for several decades. And so they understand what they do. And they're really cool. They're very similar to like pheromones in terms of bees and ants communicating when there's food around or enemies. And it turns out that bacteria do the same thing. Those chemicals that they use for this are called QSMs. But nobody had really looked at it from a quantitative point of view, like in a laboratory, or well, exactly how much of these chemicals are being produced and when and how unique are they. And that's actually what my research group did for about a decade at Northeastern. And one day we had somebody from the tech transfer office or somewhere was asking us, well, what's the application for this? Why are you measuring these things? And the answer was, well, they could be really interesting for infections to be able to see a different way to figure out if there's an infection there and to track if the infection's getting better. And so that's kind of what started the idea for the company. And I didn't have a business background. So when we decided that we wanted to start the company, they had us go through a lot of business training. And so you want to find who's going to use your product. They call that product market fit. And one of our mentors had asked us if we ever had spoken to any veterinarians about the use case. And when we reached out to the veterinarians, they were really interested because one of the neat features is that it's really fast and low cost. And those are things that are particularly interesting for the veterinary space where you don't have the same sort of like insurance coverage. And so if you're able to do something like during a visit, and like particularly for microbiology, lab testing, sending out for cultures and sensitivities is really expensive and getting more expensive with like next gen sequencing and things. And so that's really what started us down the veterinary path. And so we decided to first develop the product and commercialize it for veterinarians. And so we launched an instrument in June of 2021 at VMX. And that was that first weird COVID year where nobody had really attended. And one of the things while we were there and when we were trying to visit vet clinics is we noticed all the people sitting in their cars with their pets waiting to be seen. And the staff was really shorthanded and you couldn't go in for a lunch and learn. And that's actually when we came up with the idea for FetchDx as a way to actually help market our QSM instruments. Because
Wow.
yeah, we could easily send a little kit to vet clinics and say, hey, try out this kit, collect a sample. and we'll do a cytology, and we can include a Pseudomonas test in that for the same price. And that's actually how FetchDx started. And so all of that's kind of evolved out. And now we have a whole line of these valent testing kits, and we have the instruments still. We haven't been able to add too many other tests outside of Pseudomonas yet, but we have them in the lab. And hopefully we'll launch some by the end of this year for other bacteria. It's just R&D is really expensive and time consuming to like build new sensors that nobody's ever done. But hopefully we'll be able to add additional low cost ID tests to include with FetchDx, and for veterinarians to also have in their clinic instead of sending out to a lab.
That's freaking phenomenal. So I wanted to clarify, we're using acronyms and things like that. R&D
Yeah.
is research, and what was it? Our research and
Development.
And development. I know this because I have a friend who was working in R&D for various things. So I at one time had to be like, what is R&D that you keep saying? So I figured I would also explain it to our listeners.
Yeah.
And then you said it, a QSM. Remind me, what does the Q stand for again?
Quorum.
Quorum. Oh,
Yeah. So
Quorum.
they take the count of each other, like in Congress, they check for a quorum is present.
Oh.
So these are quorum-sensing molecules. They make decisions, and this is actually really scary from a microbiology point of view. You think of like E. coli as single-celled organisms, but they actually organize themselves in communities. And so they react based on quorum. Like when there's enough of them present, they change what they do and like what their metabolism looks like and stuff. And it's all regulated by these chemicals.
Holy shit. That is absolutely fascinating. I've never heard of this ever. And it's so cool that you kind of like, you're coming straight from the really like hardcore science perspective. Like you're not coming in from the investor, how can I profit off the veterinary profession? You're coming in, I have this amazing technology that can really help. And, you know, like you started with almost like, it feels to me this like passion for the science and the interest in the work, and then how it could be applied for beneficial applications in terms of infections and healing. And then the business side of things came later. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm such a huge fan of that type of process where the passion comes first, the real interest, the actual desire for good, and then the business is the sort of mechanism by which you distribute this thing. So I love your path. I love the journey you've been on, and just such an esoteric and interesting type of technology. And I've seen your logo before. For those of you who are watching on the YouTube version of this, in the background of Ed's, I don't know if that's actually like a Zoom background. Yeah, it is.
It's a Zoom background. But my office is not that nice.
Yeah, that's why I have a background too. My place is a mess. But in the background of this Zoom background, it says QSM with the logo, and it's like very like molecular sciencey looking. And it's like, oh, I understand. Okay, so that's what QSM is about. That's so interesting and so fascinating. And I love that you're the originator of this is someone with a true deep study and knowledge and understanding of science. That's what this is really coming from, right? So I'm very curious. You mentioned the cost of culture and sensitivity compared with this QSM technology that you're using. Is that a thing? Is it that QSM is more cost effective to provide? And does it actually replace the need to culture and then identify and then test multiple bacteria? Like, I'm curious how these two modalities interplay with each other.
It's not a complete replacement. And that's why it works best for ears and skin, where you're doing topical antibiotics. And so some of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years talking with different specialties. So we work a lot with Dr. Craig Griffin. He's a veterinary dermatologist. And so for him, he rarely worries about sensitivities for ear infections. He's more worried about what the bacteria is. And Pseudomonas is really kind of the most problematic one. They form these really gunky biofilms, and they're very difficult to treat once it gets settled in. And so our test is a quantitative measurement. Like it tells you when Pseudomonas is there and roughly how much. And then you can retest after you've started the animal on treatment and see when it's really gone to zero. And actually, there's not enough data out there yet in terms of can you really get rid of a Pseudomonas infection 100%? We think you can. We have a couple stories where you can, but it's so difficult to measure right now without sending out for genetic testing every time and things like that. So like our test to the clinic is like 10 or $15 a piece. And you can do it right there in your clinic and ID and track Pseudomonas infections. And like we're working on other sensors for staph and E. coli and Klebsiella that you can use for ear infections and skin. But you can also use them for things like initial UTI visits where you don't want to necessarily send out yet for a culture and sensitivity, or the pet parent doesn't want to pay for all of that, to be able to have something for like 20 or $40 to run right in your clinic and be able to pick an antibiotic based on the ID that comes back. And that kind of opens up this idea, what they call an antibiogram, where you kind of know what more or less is going to work on a first pass. And so you can grab an antibiotic based on that and start from there. And it gives you a lot of insight. I'm always surprised because once you kind of start down that path, to then go back to a pet parent and say on the fourth visit, like, well, now we have to run a culture and spend like $200 or $300. And you've waited so long to be able to have some of that insight on the first visit and maybe dial in your treatment plan off the bat because you know it's going to be challenging with Pseudomonas and things like this. That's really the idea behind it. And we're going to be able to add some of the sensitivities, but not all of them. So we are working on like a methicillin resistance sensor, but the way our technology works, we have to measure chemicals that are actually secreted out by the bacteria. And a lot of the resistance that comes up are like genetic changes. They're not necessarily making more of an enzyme or something that we can measure. And so that's where our technology finds its limits. So it has its applications and it has some neat ways to check that. We're looking at things for like large animals down the road. We've had some equine vets say that like they're really interested in just knowing if like a breeding mare has Klebsiella or Pseudomonas, for example, beforehand. And so like there's niche applications where the technology really comes in handy just for the instruments for a veterinarian to have for use cases. And then there's lots of uses on the human side, which we've never had a chance to explore at all. We're hoping once we get more sensors and tests for the instrument, we might be able to license it out to some company that could take it for human use cases and have approvals in that space.
Oh, that's so amazing. Like listening to you talk reminds me that when I was a kid, what I wanted to be when I grew up was a mad scientist. Like I wanted to be a straight up scientist. Like a veterinarian is sort of like an offshoot of that, but like I really like that like true science mind, and like just the stuff you're talking about is so like fun and interesting and exciting to me. And I don't think I've ever, well, no, of course I've spoken to like actual scientists before, but like this is the first time I'm having like a sit down conversation with like an actual scientist who is like the person I wanted to be when I grew up. So this is very cool for me. Thank you for sharing these really interesting, like the antibiogram. How freaking cool is that? And before we go on to explain a little bit more of like logistically how this can help house call, concierge vets, mobile vets, things like that, I have a few more like sciencey questions that
Sure.
I was hoping you could sort of like field for me. So I want to actually just like give people a little bit of like actual like veterinary science here. Like tell me a little bit more about the antibiogram. Like you said like, and I know exactly what you mean. Like if you have a certain type of bacteria, usually you're going to have to use this type of antibiotic. If it's that type of bacteria, most of the time, unless you have like a crazy like resistance pattern,
Sure.
it's going to be this type of antibiotic that you need. Can you tell us like some specifics? Like what
Yeah.
bacteria you usually link with what antibiotic? Like just like list a few off the top of your head that you
Yeah.
commonly in the veterinary world.
Sure. I can list a few. I'm not an expert yet, but it's the fun part of being a scientist going into a new space, I feel like I'm learning a lot of veterinary specific microbiology and clinical lab science. So for Pseudomonas, for example, it's a huge issue because a lot of Pseudomonas is already resistant to most antibiotics. Like there's only a handful of antibiotics left that work, and you don't want to prescribe those unless you know it's Pseudomonas. So there's definitely a stewardship component, and it's huge on the human side, but we're seeing it play a bigger and bigger role on the pet side as well, because now that your cat and dog are inside the house, they sleep on your bed. They love to lick my ears. They probably like lick the kids' ears and stuff. And that's how you end up with an ear infection yourself. But they normally would prescribe and use what are called fluoroquinolones for Pseudomonas. And like the brand name for that is Batril. And it's one of these things that it's challenging for veterinarians because you guys have to know about so many different things. Like you're not going to specialize in microbiology specifically in internal medicine. Like there's a handful of specialists, but there's a lot of practices that just like to use Batril. Like, hey, it works every time, but at some point it's going to stop working. And I think the latest number is that it doesn't work in like 15 to 20% of cases already. And
No.
yeah, so if you can at all try to use something like an EDTA tris wash first with the shampoo, and if you know that it's not Pseudomonas and that it's like a gram positive, you could pick a very different set of antibiotics and not pick one of the fluoroquinolones or Batril specifically. I know them by the scientific name. So like
Yes. Yeah. Go on.
marble flox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Stick with that. We know that language.
Yeah. So marbofloxacin, enrofloxacin, like you don't want to use those if they're not Pseudomonas, for example. And when you're looking at staph, one of the biggest differentiators is methicillin resistance. So are the penicillins going to work or are they not going to work? And so you might want to grab a different class of antibiotics if you have that answer. But like for E. coli, there's a lot of antibiotics that work. I know for UTIs specifically, it's weird and super gross how often we see, for example, Proteus in ear infections. I never would have guessed.
Oh.
Like you get Proteus normally for UTIs. And so like when we're building out our sensor, we're like, okay, Proteus is going to go on our UTI test. And like we get way more Proteus in ear infections than you'd have. But
God.
that one requires a very unique set of antibiotics. I don't know exactly which ones they are off the top of my head, but I know Proteus like digs into tissues. So you need a tissue penetrating antibiotic if it's Proteus. But if it's not Proteus, you don't want to necessarily use that class of antibiotics. So those are like the quick and easy things you can look at. I know the University of Minnesota has a really extensive antibiogram and microbiology set of data that's freely available for veterinarians. So you can download that. I actually learned a lot. There's a phone app that Bayer puts out, and that's actually where I started when I was talking to veterinarians. Like it's a great little cheat sheet that you can download for free on your phone. I'm trying to remember if I have it on this phone.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't have it on you, no worries. We can add it in the show notes afterwards. I think that would be lovely.
Yeah, because you can pick based on like dog or cat and where on the body it is, and it gives you some really cool insights. So,
Cool.
Dr. Amy Bowman's our chief veterinary officer, and she told me about this. It's great for new veterinarians or veterinary students to look through and be able to quickly ID like what you would want to prescribe if you're not sending out for a sensitivity, and it gives you like percentage breakdowns of what's going to work and what's not.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I'm a huge fan of antibiotic stewardship. So I think the more that we can kind of determine more accurately, even if we don't have the funds available from our clients to run an actual culture and sensitivity, I think this is so important. This is just another tool so that we don't blow it with our human capacity to treat bacterial infections. I have another question for you. You mentioned like
Mhm.
EDTA tris wash and kind of like more, topical stuff that's not exactly straight up an antibiotic
Right.
product. And I know you're not a veterinarian, so I don't mean to put you in an awkward position, but as a microbiologist, as someone who's like your bread and your day to day is microbes and treating them, right? Do you have any thoughts on the enzymatic products like Zymox? Like, to me,
Yeah.
that's my first line usually. It's like, if I don't have to use an antibiotic, I won't, but I'm really curious. And it's over the counter too, so it's kind of easy for my clients to pick it up. I would love
Yeah.
to hear your thoughts on that. It seems like you have some thoughts.
Yeah. No, a lot of those products work really well. And I definitely defer to what Dr. Griffin talks about. And I've had a chance to sit in on quite a few of his lectures at various conferences and hear like his recommendations and what he does.
Wait, hang on.
Uh,
I think I might know him. Does he teach at UPenn?
no, he's based in Las Vegas. He's actually the founder of the animal dermatology group.
Oh, cool. Okay. Okay.
Uh, yeah, I, he might have been at UPenn at some point in his career.
At my dermatology rotation in UPenn back in the day, because I'm like, I don't remember his first name, or I have a face in mind. I'm like, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah,
Really
there's a
nice guy,
handful
kind of like reddish blondish hair.
well, now it's gray, so it might have been red at one point.
Okay, I'll have to look this up and see if it's the person who I think it is. But anyway.
Yeah, but yeah, he's always on the veterinary lecture circuit, and he loves to start out, especially if it's not Pseudomonas, with just a topical and like an enzymatic product. And usually, like if you can get your clients to do that consistently, a fair number of cases will get resolved. Obviously, you need to resolve the underlying issue of what's causing the conditions for the bacteria to want to colonize and throw a party in the dog's ear. Usually it's some sort of allergy response or something like that. Or if they're spending a lot of time outdoors and really like humid conditions, or they jump in backyard pools and ponds and stuff, they're going to see a lot of ear infections. But you can keep it under control for a lot of these cases. It's actually, I haven't come across any formal studies in terms of looking at resistance or severity of infections, or what we call I can't think of it, but it's tied in to Quorum-Sensing actually. But I want to say it starts with a V. I'll think of it at some point. But in terms of like, not every bacteria is equally infective. Like some staph, you might be able to get rid
Like
of very easily.
virulence?
Virulence, yes, virulence. That's the word I was thinking of. But like correlating, actually being able to measure virulence, because it's a very qualitative thing. But like with our QSMs, it becomes much more quantitative. It's like, hey, this is really virulent, or it's not very virulent because it produces a lot or a little of the QSMs that are associated with
Wow.
infection. But tying that to like, are you able to treat something that's less virulent and get it resolved without an antibiotic completely? And so, yeah, those over the counter things, I think as a first pass do work fairly well. And if that doesn't get resolved, maybe then you move to an antibiotic and start to thinking about treatment paths that way in terms of much better antibiotic stewardship as a path forward. So yeah, there's a lot of products. I haven't evaluated any of the enzymatic ones myself. I know a lot of the derm specialists are constantly going through those and have recommendations around which ones might be the best out there for that. But there's, I think, a fair amount of data that you could start with just a rinse and a wash. I know for Pseudomonas, like it's invasive and it can be challenging, but like a deep ear flush is helpful because they form these biofilms that are difficult to penetrate with antibiotics and topicals sometimes. So just being able to physically remove the material really helps with outcomes.
Amazing. Yeah, I've experienced similar types of outcomes when I start with enzymatic and just ear washes. And, some of with the Zymox, it comes with a little bit of steroid too. So it just helps the animal feel a little bit more comfortable, like the itching and the pain and the inflammation can come down, but we're actually enzymatically handling the biofilm. And that does so much, right? Before we ever need to introduce an actual antibiotic that could in turn create resistance down the line. Like for me personally, my hierarchy of ear meds, of course, informed by diagnostics and things like that.
Mm.
It's Zymox ear wash, like the Zymox with the steroid in it. I can't remember the exact name of the product. Then usually it's Claro if neither of those are enough. And usually I find that it's not enough if we have had compliance issues more than anything else.
Yeah.
Or, like, and most of my clients, I'm a concierge vet, so my clients let me know immediately if there's even like a little bit of redness. So I'm not personally dealing with these like horribly infected ears that have been going for months or weeks or even days, like usually like 24 hours after there's like some evidence of possible ear infection, animals shaking their head a little bit, like we're right on it. So my kind of hierarchy has been very, very effective because we're also catching it very, very early. So
Yeah, actually, you mentioned Claro, and that's one of the few that hasn't been tested specifically. I don't think it works against Pseudomonas. So it's going to work in like 80% of cases. And maybe in your area, you're not seeing as much Pseudomonas. It's also kind of regional and
oh, that's
specific.
interesting. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
we see a lot more in the Southeast,
Wow.
areas that are really humid. Dogs spend more time outdoors. We see more, we're seeing an uptick now in the springtime with Pseudomonas. And actually, this year, a lot of Sphingomonas infections are
Oh,
popping up in the last couple of weeks. All of a sudden, the lab's seeing a bunch of them. And, but yeah, Claro's one where if it is Pseudomonas, you might not get a good outcome, even though it's great because it's a one time and
right.
so nice. But if you know ahead of time that it's Pseudomonas, and you can kind of be able to prep the pet owner for it if they decide to go that route, or you might want to think about something else or add something in off the bat. That's one where
It doesn't have, I'm blanking right now. It doesn't have a fluoroquinolone in it, right?
it doesn't, and
It's
it's
kind of
all
why I
it's
like it because we don't know.
yeah,
Because it's kind of
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, it's sort
and
of like, oh, we're not like blowing through our quinolones that we
exactly. If
desperately
it's a
need.
staph infection,
Yeah.
it's going to work amazingly well. And generally, like that's the most common one. But I think the latest number is like 25% of your infections are Pseudomonas.
Whoop.
It's been going up in number. The data
Insane.
is definitely a little bit worrisome, but again, it's how much time does your dog spend outside? If it's purely an indoor dog, it's much less likely to see Pseudomonas infections. So it's a lot of things to think about when you're
Yeah.
doing your diagnosis, but having that extra little piece of data can really be helpful. And if you can do a low cost cytology or culture or run a QSM test, that's a little bit of information that gets you some better outcomes that really kind of helps in the long run.
That's amazing. I would say that in my case, in my client base, I've only ever seen Pseudomonas, maybe never in my house call practice. In the clinic,
Mm.
yes, but in my house call practice, never. I'm in Los Angeles, which we have some humidity, but I'm also a low volume. I'm very low volume. So I also am not getting an accurate cross section of the population. So I think that some people's practices are like ear infection, ear infection, ear infection. And
Yeah.
mine has a fair share of it, but I'm not like the ear infection queen of veterinarians of Los Angeles. You know what I mean? So I think especially for people who are really like in their hands, their practice just attracts a lot of ear infections and allergies and
Yeah.
things like that. Definitely having this like quick test, just make sure, is this Pseudomonas or not? Can you use the Claro or do you have to use something else? I think
Yeah.
that's so important, especially in light of antibiotic stewardship and the rising numbers that you've reported of these.
Yeah. And it could be that it's also like, unfortunately, a lot of it's tied to socioeconomic. Like our lab sees a lot of low cost samples from areas. Like we work with a lot of people in rural areas and people that are using just like veterinary telehealth or go to like a high volume, low cost clinics where they can't afford to send their pet to a groomer every 3 weeks and give
Right.
baths all the time. And so we see that and that it can definitely skew your numbers and what your practice is going to see. So definitely things to keep in mind. We have some like really concierge vets in the Boston area. They're not seeing a lot of ear infections. They almost never see a Pseudomonas kind of like yours. But yeah, places in like mobile vets in like rural Kentucky, uh, they're seeing a lot of ear infections. And for them, it's a challenge to even pay to have a cytology done in a lot of those areas. So
Yeah.
sending out for a culture is almost unheard of. And so that's where I get really excited by like some of the technology that we can offer, and to be able with like our FetchDx kits, like we'll do the cytology for you. If you have a really busy practice and you're on the road driving around, you don't want to get home and do cytologies for an hour or two. You could just drop it in a mailbox after you've even visited the patient. And yeah, we have some doctors that are like busy mobile vets, or they're stuck in traffic in an urban area. So they'll collect the swabs themselves and just drop it in the mail. And with our ear kit, we'll actually give you the cytology results and images of the microscopy, just like you'd be doing
Oh, cool.
yourself
Yeah.
to have with your results. So it's really a time saver for busy mobile vet practice.
That's amazing. Hey there, it's Eve Harrison. There's a question that I get from veterinarians all the time. How do you do concierge practice in your house call vet practice? Another question I get is, what is concierge practice? So the term concierge definitely gets thrown around in a lot of ways that are different from what I mean. But for me, I'm a house call vet, but as a sub mini micro niche within house call vet practice, I specifically have a concierge practice. So among other features, concierge practice functions as a membership container, but that's not the only thing that makes concierge concierge. What concierge practice really means for me is that I run a thriving, fully self-sustaining house call practice where I see way fewer patients. I earn income that is way more aligned with my actual effort, my skills, and the super thoughtful heart and soul that I put into my work. And the best part for me is that my client base is perfectly curated. I legitimately love every one of my clients and patients. And as a result of me not being burned out or resentful and feeling secure in my income and the energetic exchanges occurring between us, everyone involved receives the thoughtful, comprehensive care that they deserve, including me. And I actually have time and energy left to be my whole self rather than being defined by my career only. My Concierge Vet Mastermind program gives you everything you need to build a sustainable practice that honors both your calling as a vet and your ability to live a balanced, fulfilled life. In just 6 months, I will personally guide you through my Compassionate Concierge method with exclusive on-demand training, along with private coaching and direct text access to me, as though you were a member of my actual concierge practice. So you get to feel what it's like to be a client in my own concierge practice. You'll learn exactly how to structure, price, and market your services while skillfully and compassionately honoring your own boundaries. Plus, you'll join a super intimate community of like-minded veterinarians who are transforming their practices right alongside you. Do you want to learn a little bit more about what concierge vet practice is and if it's a good match for your goals before you commit? If so, check out my free Concierge Vet Starter Kit. Both links are in the show notes for you. Welcome to VetMed's best kept secret, and I'm sharing it all with you. I can't wait to see you inside. And shifting into the logistics of how this helps mobile vets, you had mentioned to me you also have like dropship options. And I remember the last time I spoke to you about this, I was like, damn it, why didn't I think of this like literally yesterday with one of my patients? Like if you have a patient that live an hour away and you're like, you go to them for house calls, but like they need, like a poop sample or like a pee sample. And before you get there, we just need to know if we can start like what we're dealing with before we even arrive. You mentioned that you could have a sample kit, like a testing kit, sent dropship to the client. They can mail in the sample and you have results by the time you get to the client, whenever you can fit an hour-long drive to get them into your schedule, but you haven't held up their actual like diagnostic and treatment process. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we offer drop shipping services for veterinarians. So every practice is so different. So we try to be as flexible as possible, brick and mortars as well. We see all kinds of different practices operating differently. So for a lot of the mobile vets, the easiest thing is you just fill out a little onboarding form with us. and you just send us an email, like where you want the kit drop shipped. And as long as we get it before 3 p.m. Eastern time, we ship it out that day. It's overnighted to anywhere in the 50 states. So the pet owner has the sample the next day, whether it's a fecal kit, a urine kit, a ear skin swab kit. They collect a sample. It comes with a prepaid overnight return UPS label. So they just drop it off with UPS. It could be any of the CVS or a Dropbox, or they hand it to a UPS driver. It gets back to us the next day, and we have it turned around in 12 to 24 hours for you. So we'll do urinalysis with sedimentation and UPC. We'll do a fecal. So it's a centrifugation float with Giardia. We do cytologies. Obviously, if we run a full culture, that takes another 2 or 3 days. But again, it gets started before you're even out there. And you know that they'll have a sample collected. So if you go out and there's no urine in their bladder, you're not sitting around or waiting.
Right.
I think it also helps with compliance because the pet owner's much more likely to call up as soon as there's an issue, and they can get the kit the next day. They're not going to wait. The kits are also good for 3 years. So if you have pet owners that have pets with chronic issues, they could just have a kit sitting at home. Or for a recheck, they could have it a couple kits with them and just grab it as soon as they notice issues and collect a sample and send it in instead of maybe waiting. I definitely fall into this category. It's like, well, maybe I'll wait a few days, see if it gets better before I put in the phone call.
Yeah.
If I already have a kit ready to go that I've bought as a pet parent, I'm going to grab it as soon as I notice an issue and send it in. And then the results get sent right to the veterinarian, and we give you 72 hours head notice, kind of lead time, so that you can view the results before we notify the pet owner. And because they obviously want to know what the results are as well. But this way, they're not calling you up right away. You have a chance to review the results and reach back out to them yourself first. And so right into a number of PIM systems, if you have them for your practice. If you don't, you get a PDF of the results emailed to you. You can always log into our little FetchDx dashboard and see who has kits and what the status is, and you can re-download the results for yourselves.
Amazing. That is such a cool, streamlined approach that I think really works, like logistically for what I do and what other mobile veterinarians do. It's just another trick up your sleeve just to like make the logistics of not having a clinic and not having everything you need right there necessarily. I mean, you may, but like this is another way to do that, right? So a question that I have, if it's okay to ask a little bit about the logistics of the payment situation, like does the vet purchase the kit from you at the time that they drop ship, or do you bill the veterinarian at the time that lab results have come in or that work has been done?
So we operate on when the kit was purchased because we don't have any contracts. So you can have a couple kits in your clinic and ready to go, and you don't have to worry about price increases or anything like that. And like for us, we already have the prepaid label and everything inside the box. On the drop ship, and this is why we have you guys enroll and fill out a little form beforehand. And even if you just want to stock a kit, what we do is we invoice you once a month at the end of the month for however many kits you've gotten. So you're not paying before the kit gets shipped if you're buying from us directly. So like we have mobile vets that might order 3 or 4 kits to have in their van, and then they'll have a handful of kits that are drop shipped directly, and we just send them an invoice at the end of the month. Here's the kits that you purchased, because obviously it's cheaper if you're stocking it because we don't have to overnight it out to the pet owner. So we have different prices. And if you create an account at qsmdiagnostics.com, you can see all the pricing. A lot of the distributors carry our kits. So if you work with MWI or Vetris, you can buy the kits from them. For stocking, they handle shipping a little bit differently. They don't do direct drop shipping, but they do carry us on their online stores. So if you have an online store through Vetris or VetSource, for example, as your kind of online pharmacy, our kits are actually on there. And you can go in and set whatever the pricing is that you want for your clinic. And that way you could just tell the pet parent to refer them to your online store and say, hey, buy it there and you can pay for overnight shipping from VetSource or Covetrus or Midwest and their online stores that they carry, and they'll fulfill it and ship it to that person's home. So it really is kind of the future of diagnostics, where if your practice isn't open and maybe you don't have a telehealth option that they can call into, they can always go to your online store over the weekend and buy one of these kits. And that's something you can message to your clients as well and be like, hey, if it comes up, you don't want to have a kit, it's available on our online stores without a prescription. So you can just order it and have it, and then the results will come back to the clinic.
Yeah, that's so fun. There's so many things I want to respond to for I'm like, where do I start here? As far as like revenue and what your margins and things like that, I've done it before where I've created packages where it includes a test, but also like 2 or 3 telemedicine appointments so that I can actually follow up. And it's not just like they've paid for the test and now I'm working for free to like give them follow-up treatment, to come up with the treatment plan, to answer all of their questions. So like it is very important to have these margins around the test. And depending on how you want to package it, do you want it to be like you get a few emails that kind of review these tests, or you get included in this pricing that you may want to set a telemedicine appointment to, before treatment, et cetera. I mean, and even depending on your telemedicine laws in your state, whether you can establish VCPR based on telemedicine or not, or does this include actually one house call follow-up as well, so that you can be within the legal boundaries of your telemedicine applications, right? And prescribing, diagnosing, and examining it within the realm of like what's legal, right? But I think that it's really great that there's essentially like a wholesale cost that vets are paying, and we can batch that into whatever it is that we want. Just, either market the test as its own test, like that's it, or have it again include a certain degree of follow-up that's either monetized or compartmentalized in a certain time related package. And so on that note, I wanted to say that I really respect and I love how your product is sold direct to the vet. There's no like workaround. There's a number of other products out there of companies that will sell the same lab test directly to the client, and then the client comes to you expecting free advice, free treatment plan, free follow-up. And it really kind of undermines our ability to earn a living and to really respect ourselves in terms of our capacity to earn an income and be compensated fairly, if not by money, at least with an appropriate energetic exchange of understanding that just because you have these results, I'm not, obligated to work for you for free to interpret them, right? Like we all want to, but we also are, living in a world where you have to earn an income for your profession, right? So I really love how you respect the vet profession and how you, in some ways, protect the profession and our time and our energy by one, engaging directly with veterinarians rather than going around. And then also, I love what you said about how you give the vet a little bit of a heads up with the results so that they can first be prepared about what results their client is going to receive and then come to them with questions. So I think that's lovely. And then on the subject of like supporting and respecting our veterinary profession, I wanted to thank you so much for your generous sponsorship for our conference. It's because of you that we're able to do this. And I wanted to check in and just kind of shift gears a little bit. How was conference for you? What was your favorite part? Did you get some interest coming your way?
Yeah, we picked up a couple new mobile and concierge vets out of it, which was awesome. And
I know at least one of them who's like thrilled.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it was great. It was our first time sponsoring. We're still a relatively new company. We've only been doing this for a few years, but it was great to be able to participate. Not necessarily as a PhD, but I just love learning. So no matter what the topic is, so being able to sit in on some of the sessions and see how different doctors run their practices and have ideas and recommendations. Like it was just so cool to be able to be part of that and listen in, and also some of the networking to chat with people around that. So it was really great. Definitely looking forward to sponsoring again next year. Hopefully we could do it at a higher level and get even more involved, because I think our products in particular are really geared toward mobile vets, like so much flexibility. I love what you mentioned about having that telehealth component. Definitely, for sure, you package it in because like we don't have our own telehealth, so like we can't interpret the results for you, and it's definitely something you should package in. And yeah, you can move that around and say, hey, it includes a visit. Also, each one of the states have different VCPR rules that pet parents have no idea about.
No, I
And so like, yeah, if
and
they
who
just
blames
show up
you
at,
can't blame them.
yeah,
It's not their job to
no,
know.
exactly. But if they show up at your door with the test result and they want a prescription for or a medication for something, you have to have in a lot of states an exam. And like if you've worked that in already, or say, hey, there's an exam included, and maybe you buy a kit and then you come in and we can have the exam, and then you have VCPR, and then you can interpret the results and diagnose, and you're completely covered and safe and legal under those conditions. It creates a lot of flexibility, which I think is great for both the doctors and for pet parents, because oftentimes it's so challenging for them to try to figure out in their schedules to be able to figure out how do I collect samples and do diagnostic testing and still have that veterinary engagement. So, no, it's definitely, and I think mobile vets are a huge part of that. That people that look for convenience and options like that are lined up, and so that's something that we really love to partner with and work with that group of vets.
Love it. And your vibe is just so like straightforward and just like you're a scientist. I love it. It's so great, as I mentioned before. But I was thinking the packaging, I've never actually seen anyone else do that before, but it is something that I do, that I package either diagnostic tests or like a fluid administration session with either like a video that I've created that shows them how to do it, and it comes with one follow-up so that we can troubleshoot, how to do a certain thing, how to give an injection, how to give fluids. And it's interesting that you keyed in on that, because that's one of the best things I've ever thought of. I can't say nobody else has ever done it before, but I actually, last night, was watching this incredible TV show that I discovered. It's called Common Side Effects. It's about the pharmaceutical industry and also about mushrooms, and it's a political commentary. It's a cartoon. It's absolutely hilarious. It's the best show I've ever seen in my life. It's like it was made for me. And what I'm about to say is about one of the commercials that's playing during this show. I watched the last episode. The next episode's coming out next Monday, I think. I'm obsessed. But there was an ad that I saw, and I think I've seen this in other contexts, but this was the first time that it occurred to me that I was like, that's what I do. It was an ad for a company called Mochi, which is really funny. And they were advertising GLP-1 injections, which I've never taken that. I kind of want to, but I'm also scared. That's a whole other can of worms. But I was like, Mochi, that's the name of like a junk food that would actually make you gain weight. Interesting. But anyway, so, I mean, they have these packages I don't know
Yeah.
if they call it packages, but it's a system where you get the GLP-1 injection, but they also come with guidance and like essentially telemedicine or telehealth follow-up appointments. And I was like, that's what I do. Genius. Good thinking, GLP-1 people at Mochi. That's hilarious. So I just kind of thought of that as you were kind of reflecting that
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. And I've seen a couple other companies do it with the GLP-1s as well for weight loss.
Yeah.
And so like telehealth and telemedicine on the human side, it's really common to do that. Like they don't have the same sort of business structure in terms of medications, but I think the telehealth companies do, to be able to bundle. I haven't seen it a lot yet in the veterinary space, but I think it's an amazing thing to do. We do have a couple that have started bundling our kits with their like wellness test offerings or wellness plans
great.
annually. So
That's
it's
smart.
kind of similar where you can offer visits or some combination of visits and telehealth
Mhm.
and actually provide them with the kit up front. And if they don't use it for an emergency or an issue, they could use it ahead of their next annual exam, for example.
Yeah.
And so hopefully this gives some people listening some new ideas as well
Yeah.
for ways to kind of combine and offer these things. It's been going really well with a couple of practices that have started doing that with us last year.
That's amazing. Oh, this is so exciting. And this has been such a fun conversation. We dipped into the science, the medicine, the business, the monies, client communication, VCPRs, state law, etc. Like we covered so much stuff. So I think we're kind of at the end of our conversation here. But before we close up, I want to ask you two things. One, is there anything else that you'd like for people to know about you, how they can find you? And two, what's your favorite beverage? Or now that we're in the House Call Vet Cafe, what beverage might you like to order?
Well, I'll start the plug. If you as a veterinarian go to qsmdiagnostics.com and create an account with your license, you'll be able to see all the wholesale pricing. It's the same pricing that if you log in, if you have a Vetcove account, or if you talk to any of your distributors, that's how you can find all of our products. So reach out in any one of those ways, or even just send me an email directly. You can send it to sales@qsmdiagnostics.com, or my last name, Goluch, at qsmdiagnostics.com. We don't really have a big sales team, so odds are it's going to be me answering the emails. In terms of beverage, non-alcoholic, I actually am a big fan of Diet Mountain Dew. And on the alcoholic side, most recently, I am really into just like a Woodford Reserve whiskey on the rocks. I used to be a huge, and I guess I still am a huge craft beer guy. I love sour beers and have
Hate them.
uh
But hey, power to you.
yeah, no, there's a whole spectrum and world. I love the creativity of what you can do with sour beers and craft beers, but some of them have gotten too acidic for me as I get older. I got to avoid the heartburn. So yeah, a nice like Woodford Reserve or nice whiskeys, my go-to these days.
Fantastic. Cheers. Here's my cup that I
Thanks.
get to cheers. This is
Nice.
that I use for a conference. It's still sitting on my desk from about a month ago. Oh, you can see the reflection of my messy room in this. Welcome to the
Oh.
shit show. It's called all of my
Nice.
my
Yeah,
assistant.
I only have a water because I'm at work. I don't have any alcohol sitting in my office these days. I
You're the
know.
boss, right? You can fix
I know. I used to have a bottle of whiskey when I was a press. It's sad to say that I'm less stressed as a startup owner than trying to go through the tenure process as faculty. So that's at home now. But maybe I should bring something in for like celebratory stuff occasionally.
Well, cheers to that. And thank you so much for your time and your insight and for coming up with such an awesome product that is going to help our clinics, our mobile practices, and our clients and our patients. So thank you again so much. And I can't wait for next round of conference and more sponsorship and more podcasts and et cetera, et cetera. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on. Super glad I was able to hang out with you today. Thanks.
Great times.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the House Call Vet Cafe. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to miss an episode. This podcast is made specifically for you, so don't be shy if you'd like to reach out and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as The House Call Vet Academy, where I also share more valuable content. If you're interested in learning more about consulting for House Call Vets or the House Call Vet Academy online course and community, please click on the link in the show notes. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait for you to join us for our next episode of the House Call Vet Cafe.